This week on our AMP America Week in Review, the Teamsters quietly back Trump while P. Diddy becomes the new Jeffrey Epstein? But first, we unpack the rise of Blue Anon and why conspiracy theories aren't just for the right wing. You don't want to miss it. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show. Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show. Well, happy Saturday. Brian Nichols here on another fun-filled episode of the Brian Nichols Show. We're doing our AMP America Week in Review. We got a lot to dig into. Why the Teamsters split from the Democratic Party, and they officially are not endorsing anyone, but they're actually endorsing someone. Let's talk about why we went from QAnon to Blue Anon, and then, I don't know, let's talk about P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Sean Combs, and all the weird things that are happening behind the scenes there. I can't do this alone, so joining me for our Week in Review from AMP America, Remso Martinez. You can find him on Instagram at GoRemso or on Facebook and Twitter at Hey Remso. How you doing, buddy? Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday, Brian.
I heard you're going to a fancy McDonald's today?
I'm going to a fancy McDonald's today. You know, my wife finds like the coolest things on Instagram, and I'm stuck with like cat videos and stuff. And she found this place called Cosmics. Now, have you heard of Cosmics?
So this is like the juiced up Mickey D's, right?
It's Mickey D's, but fun, i.e. they automated everything. So, you know, it's their attempt of displacing actual physical workers fun. But it's a space themed automated restaurant. There's no indoor dining. There's no people. It's basically a fun vending machine.
A fun vending machine. You know, those are always entertaining when you do find them. By the way, I did experience for the first time a drive-through with an AI bot. It was weird. I was with my coworker out in Salt Lake, and he wanted to grab a cup of coffee from Mickey D's. So we pull up to the machine, and it's, "Hi, this is Susan from McDonald's. Do you have your corporate card today?" And I was like, "Oh, no, we don't." "Oh, yo, this is Raj. How can I help you?" And we're like, "What the? Where did that come from?" And it catches you so off guard. But like, that's the future, man. It's happening right now. What do you got?
I don't know if you could see it, but this is actually a company that I'm trying to get into. I can't get in as an investor. I'm actually looking at getting in as a franchisee. So they're not paying me. Like, I just really like it. But my favorite place to get coffee is a place called Seven Brew. It's a coffee only, you know, tea, sparkling energy drinks and that type of stuff, type of drive through. The thing is, though, is that's all like Zoomers, and they all want to talk to you because that's their thing. It's like spread kindness. I'm like, no, caffeinate me. So I like going there, except because the stuff is good and it's fast, but I don't like talking to people all the time, especially young people. And I've just gotten really annoyed with like tipping recently. It's like, especially if I don't get like the same teenager who like took my order and stuff, it's like, who's the tip going to? So on days where I'm feeling really introverted, I go to, as a friend of mine called it, the glorified coffee vending machine, which is 15 minutes away, way farther. And I can put my order in advance. I scan a QR code and a window opens up and hands me my coffee. So I already like a lot of these things, but the cool thing about Cosmics is that there's only like 4 in the country right now. And there's one an hour and a half away in Bolingbrook, Illinois. So my wife was like, "We're going to go." And I was like, "Okay, I guess we're going to AI McDonald's." So that'll be fun.
There you go. Well, and by the way, but for folks joining us, yes, we are live over on Twitter as well as over on Facebook. So thank you for joining us. If you are live, head down below in the comments as we're going throughout the episode today. Elephant in the room, I don't like to run ads literally as we start the show, but we're talking about coffee, Remso, which this is a perfect segue just to introduce one of our brand new sponsors here at the Brian Nichols Show. And just elephant in the room, if you are looking at Mickey D's, Cosmic, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, all these different coffee brands, or heck, you're going to the store, you're getting your Folgers, your Maxwell House, and it just tastes like garbage, there's a reason for that. Let's take a listen and why you should instead support Clockham Craft Coffee. Are you sick of bland, bitter coffee that relies on sugar and cream just to be drinkable? You deserve better. Most coffees are over-roasted, destroying subtle flavors and leaving you with a burnt taste in your mouth. That's where Clockham Craft Coffee is different.
Their carefully crafted roasts preserve every nuance, from chocolatey notes to fruity hints. Rediscover what coffee should taste like. Choose Clockham Craft and wake up to flavor, not frustration. And by the way, Brian Nichols Show listeners, get 10% off your order using code BNS10 at clockhamcraft.coffee. Link in the show notes. And now, let's get back to the show. Are you sick of bland, bitter coffee?
Keep going in circles. How about that?
I love their little slogan, craft coffee, not corporate sludge, because I'm in kind of like a weird state, Brian. Like I have do you know what?
Just so folks know, it's hard to see on my phone. That's me this morning making my coffee, and that's a nice big bag of Bushcraft dark roast Clockham Craft coffee. It was delicious, by the way. Didn't mean to interrupt, Remso.
No, it's fine. Do you have a bucket list for your life, right?
Always.
Okay, do you have an anti-bucket list?
You mean like the things I will never do?
Yes.
1,000%. Yeah, I will never go skydiving. I will never go bungee jumping. I will never do any of those insane things with heights.
Okay, no. Mine are way more petty.
Of course they are. I will never shake hands with Barack Obama.
Okay, mine's a lot more attainable. Okay. I will never wash my own car. I hate washing my car.
Why?
I hate it. It's a waste of time. When you actually look at the time expense and the money expense, it actually consumes more time and it wastes more money. So I'd rather just go.
You're channeling the inner Jason Stapleton approach to this, man. He's like, let me go pay somebody $200 to go stand in line for me so I don't have to do it myself.
For freaking real. Like I have adapted that into my mind. He told me this like 3 years ago. And I was like, that's so childish. And then I was like, fuck, it works. Oops. It was, yeah. So like I've started forming my anti-bucket list. And my thing is like, I'm never washing my car and I'm never making my own coffee. So unless my wife makes my coffee, I almost always just go buy my coffee. And it's against like the Robert Kiyosaki thing, which is like, if you stop buying coffee and you put it into a mutual fund and blah, blah, blah. My thing is like, I'd rather just make more money. but with the corporate sludge, I found a Starbucks gift card in like a basket my wife had, and I took it and I was like, I wonder if there's anything on here. So there's a Starbucks near my house. So I was like, okay, it says on there $25. So that's enough for me to get a coffee and a sandwich now, and maybe have a little left over. So I did that. And the sandwich tasted like a microwavable breakfast sandwich, but the coffee was just, I ordered an iced mocha. And for the iced drinks, I'm an iced coffee drinker. For the iced drinks, you really can't screw that up. Oh my gosh, you should not feel worse after drinking coffee than you do. And the thing is that I was a Dunkin' Donuts partisan for years. I went to Dunkin' about a month ago, and I got a iced matcha. And it just tasted like when he said it's not like corporate sludge, I'm like, their matcha latte tasted like sludge.
You can see it, right? It's weird.
It's just, it doesn't look real.
Yeah. So then it's like chemically gross.
Yeah. So then it's like, my automated coffee place I go to, Octane, it's a little bit farther out of my way. So my excuse there is that that's my me time when I'm alone in my car and I can just think and have my thoughts. I'm one of those silent guys that drives just for fun. Like last night, I took my wife on a drive for 20 minutes just to go see the lake near where we live.
That's nice.
But then there's the place where it's like, it's closer to my house. I like their coffee, but I don't like talking to people. So now I'm at the point where I'm like, shit, like maybe I should just make my own coffee because it accomplishes all of that. So I think I'll go ahead and order some stuff from Clockton, and I'll let you know.
There you go. Well, make sure you use code BNS10 and you'll get 10% off. By the way, somebody just messaged me on Facebook saying, is this episode that you're airing with Remso live? Yes, it is live. This is real. We're not like, we're not just, recording this and then re-airing it, which I used to do in the past because live videos were never really my thing, but people like the live videos. People like to be able to jump in, share their thoughts. So if you're watching us here on Twitter, I'm seeing
a Saturday with us.
Yeah, I'm seeing folks jumping in on Twitter, Facebook. Come hang out with Remso and I. Give us your thoughts down in the comments as we're going through and talking about some of these stories. And which, by the way, let's go right into one of the lead stories here, Remso. And this is where I've been getting a little frustrated over the past year, 2 years. It's like we had, and we used to make fun of, the QAnon folks, right? It was the conspiracy theories, predominantly on the right. I know a lot of it was like...
calls you retarded. you know you messed up.
Yeah, like, I mean, remember the whole Wayfair thing? There was the Wayfair kids going into shipping containers, and then there was the whole, what was it, ping pong Comet Pizza or whatever, which turned out that guy actually was a creep.
Hey, even a broken clock is right twice.
But let's look at that, right? That was QAnon, and it was instantly discredited for everybody on the left. And where are we today? Now we have Blue Anon, and Blue Anon are these folks they're looking at the Donald Trump assassination attempts, plural attempts, and they're like, yeah, those are all just, they were done behind the scenes to try to make Trump look better. He tried to get assassinated, or did he? Let's talk about that, Remso. What's with this whole QAnon to Blue Anon fiasco where we find our country right now?
It lands into three things. One, it's the photo of the projectile. I say projectile because you and I will call it a bullet. They will call it a piece of glass. So keep that in mind. The second thing.
This is from the first assassination attempt.
This is from the first assassination in Butler, Pennsylvania in July. And then the second thing is the giant bandage from the RNC on his right ear. And then the third thing is the fact that now his ear looks, and I'm going to put quote, like nothing ever happened. A couple things happened, and this all came from the mainstream media within 72 hours of the attack. One is that they said that he never actually got shot, that what happened was there was ballistic glass around him, and that a bullet hit the glass, and it was a piece of glass that went through his ear. And what they also did was they downplayed the fact that it was assassination attempts. They called it a situation at a rally. They called it a random shooting. They tried
Trump falls at rally, loud noises in background.
Rally. Yeah, that was NBC. Like they tried to dismiss it as a nothing burger. So, there was that. And I even have friends who I would not call them like Kamala people. They like Trump, but they like him because they don't like Kamala, and they like him because they really don't like her, but they don't trust him. It's a weird thing where they're kind of like in the middle.
Which by the way, we're going to dig into that a lot more in our next article. So
yeah. So they have said, no sniper would miss. And it's just like, but the kid, Matthew Crook, wasn't a sniper.
Right.
And now what we're also seeing, when you've heard forensic evidence and, audio files that were obtained from the shooting from cameras and people that were filming at the time, Patrick Bet-David brought on a former Navy SEAL sniper in August to actually talk about it. We've heard 3 distinct gunshots. So, you've got the whole idea of whether or not this was an inside job and whether Matthew Crook was the person who actually pulled the trigger. I think I said on your show, I don't think he was the one who took the shot. Yep. And if he was the one who took the shot, I don't think he was the only one that took the shot. But, it's this idea that Trump staged it to boost his numbers. And to me, just on the face of it, I'm just thinking, okay, you want like the most, let's all just call a spade, one of the most egotistical men on earth. You think he's going to say, okay, we're down in the polls. We're losing Pennsylvania, Arizona, Wisconsin. We don't know what we're doing about them. Here's what we got to do, guys. Okay, Corey Lewandowski, come over here. Don Jr., grab Kim. All right, I'm going to have somebody pull a trigger at me. They're going to go for my face, but not really my face. Okay, just right near me. Kill a couple people up behind me if you have to. But, just maybe clip my ear. Show a drop of blood, beautiful drop of blood. And
the ear bleeds so much. I was talking to the doctors. They said so much blood to the ear. Actually, it has the most blood of all the body parts. Yep. Good times.
So, it's this idea that you act. What I mean the royal you people actually think that Donald Trump is going to allow somebody to shoot at him. I believe in a lot of crazy shit, Brian. I don't believe that whatsoever.
Brian Nichols, Remso Martinez live here on Facebook and on X for our AMP America Week in Review. Yeah, Remso. And by the way, let's talk about this Blue Anon conspiracy theories that have really been showing up here over the past, we'll say just year predominantly. It's really gotten more on the left-hand side of the aisle. And you look at where we are as a country from a discourse standpoint. I mean, how did we get to the point where so many folks look at Donald Trump as this Hitlerian figure, right? And it is, I think, part of the root cause of how we have so many blue Anon folks is that when you constantly stoke fear and division and you lead with the worst case outcomes or the worst case scenarios, when you're talking about Donald Trump, predominantly from our corporate media standpoint, it's going to sow seeds of doubt or seeds of distrust or seeds of conspiracy, especially to those individuals who look at the news and look at the corporate media as their betters. They're telling them what they need to know, right? And if these seeds of doubt are planted by these folks that they just, by the nature that they are corporate media that they trust, of course there's going to sow seeds of doubt when we're seeing a former sitting president literally almost get assassinated, not once, but twice. And one of which was on live television, right? So it takes a special kind of gray matter to get to the point where your average person on the, we'll say, middle to more far leaning left side of the political aisle aren't just entertaining ideas like this, but they are full-throatedly wrapping their arms around them, embracing these ideas. And Remso, like, this isn't to say we don't have folks on the right who also spout conspiracy theories. We see it all the time, but the difference being is where are they getting these conspiracy theories from? Mostly from the very dark recesses of the internet. Where are the blue Anon folks? Where are they getting their conspiracy theories? Turn on MSNBC or CNN, and they'll get it within the first 5-10 minutes of the evening news.
This is the same media, and I mean, I took my wife out to breakfast the other day, and there was this older woman who was probably like her 60s, 70s, who was just like this raging liberal, and she was making her two friends kind of uncomfortable, and she's just spouting like all the blue Anon shit you could possibly imagine. But can
you give us an example? Just for the audience to better understand what we're referring to here.
She kept saying, well, she also jumped on the whole idea of she thinks that Trump staged the assassination attempt. She thought that, she accused him of being a pedophile because of a comment he made about his daughter, Ivana, in like 2016. I think everyone kind of remembers that. I was like, wow, if Ivana were my daughter, it was a weird thing.
It's creepy. Okay, by the way, like,
no, that was creepy. Like, I'm not defending that.
Right? If I ever said that about my daughter, bring me out back and beat me to the hose. Like, no, absolutely not. You don't say that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, it is weird. I'm not defending that.
No, I know.
But that was like from like a decade ago, and she's still like holding on to that. And just a bunch of other things too. Like,
that was a decade ago. Holy shit!
Wow.
The era of Trump has just. I mean, it's been almost a decade. We got to think back. Like, he first came down that golden escalator in 2015. We're in 2024. It's 9 years. That time's a son of a bitch. Sorry, Remso,
yeah.
Continue.
But, just everything else. But I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
No, that's my bad. I interrupted.
So, yeah. So, I mean, she's doing that. But
your friend. Like, sorry, your friend talking about all the blue Anon conspiracy theories,
yeah,
Trump with his daughter.
This is the type of person that watched CNN tell them that Joe Biden was biking, that Joe Biden was golfing, that Joe Biden can go upstairs by himself, that Joe Biden is the fittest, healthiest, most mentally cognizant president ever. And then as soon as they actually had to like show his like, fleshy self on TV without, all his like cocaine and stuff,
come on, man,
that they kick him out immediately. And then it's like, yeah, well, we knew this about Joe the entire time. It's like they gaslight everyone. And it's the same media that allowed Kamala Harris to accuse Trump of withholding, the COVID origins. And Kamala comes out as like, a COVID lab leak truther and stuff like that. This is the same This is the same media and the same government that tried to convince you of that. So it's like, you don't have to listen to my right-wing conspiracies. You just have to see the open lies that they were complicit in. And I think the one thing that we can always go back to right now, because it's the biggest in modern history, is the fact that Joe Biden probably has not been president for 4 years.
And still isn't president.
Still is not president. And yet they don't care. They actually have a nominee who has never won a single primary, who is essentially the de facto sitting president. And
our democracy is the foundation of our country, Remso.
So, I mean, I go back to RFK a year ago. RFK said that the worst age group that he performs the lowest with is boomers. Now, why is that? Because boomers almost explicitly believe everything they see on TV.
Yup. Yup. Well,
So that's what
we
we're
might
dealing with.
we might be though, Remso, right? Let's look towards the optimism because people don't just like gloom and doom. And by the way, thank you to all the folks joining us here live on Twitter and on Facebook. Head down below in the comments, let us know your thoughts. Seeing lots of folks jump in and out, but some good news. I am seeing some change, right? And let's look at that boomer base, right? Because there are a lot of boomers who they would just jump on and see whatever's on the idiot tube, and they'd be like, "Yep, that's the truth. That's what's happening in our world today." But more and more folks are starting to question that. And I'm actually going to say right now, we might have a little bit of glimmer of hope. And that is, you look at just the recent announcement from the Teamsters. Now, the Teamsters are one of the largest unions in the United States, and they almost always, Remso, endorse Democrats, except this year. This year, not only are they not endorsing a Democrat, and by the way, they're not endorsing a Republican, but when you go into the data, when you look at the actual polling that the Teamsters brought to their members, who won when it came to actually, getting the support of the actual members of the Teamster Union?
59% Donald Trump.
It was Trump. That's right. So there's something we can learn here, right? With this Teamster vote. And by the way, big discrepancy from not just that vote to what we see with the perception of Kamala. Let's just look at the Teamsters as this microcosm. Back before Kamala Harris joined the ticket as the front of the ticket, and it was Joe Biden, the numbers were flipped. Joe Biden actually was leading Trump, and something happened. And that's
RFK
something
had like
Kamala.
5% of the vote too. So
Yep.
it was like Trump
exactly.
was not, like you'd look at that and you would not think that those people are going to remotely go for Trump. But that was, that poll that included Biden was from earlier in the year. It was from like April through June. And then from July through September, they did this new one with the candidates who will ultimately be, competing against each other. And it, 59% Donald Trump. So I think Trump absorbed that RFK vote. He absorbed almost a quarter of the Biden vote from Kamala. And what I find is hilarious is that they're like, oh, we don't have an overwhelming majority of Teamster support for a single candidate. I'm like, really? I don't believe that at all. I think 60% is a pretty overwhelming freaking number. And while the Teamsters Union is refusing to endorse a candidate, which I think their own members are like, if it was flipped the other way, if it was 60% Kamala, we would have endorsed Kamala
in a heartbeat. Did you hear their response, by the way? Kamala Harris did not lose it outright or whatever, and Donald Trump did not universally win their support. What the hell does that mean? He needs to have 100% of the Teamster vote to get their endorsement? No, this is an obvious Trump won. Trump gets your endorsement because he won the polling, and you're just too much of a pussy to actually go out and put your Teamster name on the record saying, we are not endorsing a Democrat. We are not endorsing Kamala Harris. And yep, we're endorsing Donald Trump.
So what I find hilarious about it too is the pettiness of the whole thing, because 15 state Teamster councils
Sure did.
in states like Maryland, Pennsylvania, and others, they have all come out in support of Kamala. So I want people to understand, like, what does that mean? That means that like the dozen or so people that make up the council representatives, they went ahead and endorsed Kamala. So what does that ultimately mean, though? That doesn't mean much when you look at the fact that in the blind votes, it was a vote taken by the Teamsters themselves, and then it was a second vote to compare that was done by a third-party polling firm to, give people a little extra confidence. That's how they compared the overall votes to see which one was more honest, what was the average between them. Both showed a majority of them are going to vote for Trump. So these 15 states, and let's look at what that really means. That means they might do some mailers. That means they might do some auto robocalls and stuff like that. They can spend their time and money doing that. But ultimately what they don't have is they don't have the support of the majority of card-carrying Teamsters. 60% of them are going to vote for Donald Trump. So you could say, oh, well, this council endorsed that. This council endorsed that. It's like, okay, you've got like maybe like 500,000 Teamsters. So you're saying like a dozen people from here and a dozen people from there and a dozen people from there. You're looking at maybe less than, what was it, like 39% for Kamala across the country.
Yep.
Okay, like what does that really disperse to? So I look at this, I'm just like, it's pettiness. And I also think it's even more ridiculous because the president of the Teamsters was invited to speak at the RNC and spoke at the RNC. The fact that between that, and he didn't speak of the DNC, between that and this poll result, the fact that they did not endorse anybody, is that a de facto endorsement of Trump? Yes. But that also just shows how corrupt they are. And, I live in a pretty strong union state. As a libertarian, I have some union beliefs in regards to right to work and other stuff that some people might find a little bit unpopular. So like, I don't shit on unions for fun, but never, ever, ever be mistaken that they are just like legalized mafias. That's all they are. They are legalized mafias. So if you don't think they're corrupt, if you don't think they're shady, this whole thing just showed you that they themselves had their own democratic process, and a few people at the top and a few people at the state levels were just like, you know what? Screw democracy. We're going to do our own thing.
Oh, Remso, this all this conversation probably makes everybody's heart a little bit sad. And Remso, candidly, it's made my heart a little sad too. So what you need, ladies and gentlemen, to go ahead and make your heart better. Oh, here we go. Hey, folks, I want to take a moment to talk about something that has truly changed my life, and that is Cardio Miracle, our incredible studio sponsor. Now, I'll be honest. When I first heard about Cardio Miracle and their claims about improving heart health, I was skeptical. But after using it for just about 2 months, I was absolutely blown away by the results. First, my blood pressure went from being consistently around 140/90 to a much more healthier and manageable 120/80. And my resting heart rate dropped from the low 70s to the high 50s. And I couldn't believe it. But the benefits didn't stop there. I started sleeping better, and I felt more energized at the gym, and my heart felt the best it's felt in years. And it's not just me. Hundreds of you, our amazing listeners, have reached out to share your own incredible experiences with Cardio Miracle. So, what is Cardio Miracle? And how does it work? It's a carefully crafted supplement that harnesses the power of nitric oxide to support optimal heart function. So, by increasing nitric oxide levels in your blood, Cardio Miracle helps relax your blood vessels, improve circulation, and it protects your heart from damage. It's like giving your heart the support it needs to function at its best. And here's the best part. We've got an exclusive offer just for you, our loyal listeners here at the Brian Nichols Show. When you head over to cardiomiracle.com and use code TBNS at checkout, you'll get an extra 15% discount on your order. Plus, with their 100% money-back guarantee, you've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. So, if you're ready to take control of your heart health and experience the life-changing benefits of Cardio Miracle for yourself, just click the link in the show notes or video description. Trust me, your heart will thank you. And don't wait another day to prioritize your health. Join the tens of thousands of folks who have already discovered the Cardio Miracle difference. Head to cardiomiracle.com now and use code TBNS for 15% off your order. Your journey to a happier and healthier heart starts today. And now, let's get back to the show. Back to the show. Remso woke up this morning. He said, feeling like P. Diddy. And I said, uh-oh. He's saying abort. Remso's not feeling like P. Diddy. And thank God, because that would mean Remso's 1,000 bottles of baby oil lesser. Let's talk about this, Remso. This has been a story that's really been kind of like, it's like a sub-layer of news information. And I don't know like how this is not leading the news every single day. Here's my take, and tell me if I'm getting things wrong. It just feels like, right, that Sean Combs, P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, whatever you want to call him, that he just seems like he's the Hollywood music version of Jeffrey Epstein. It sounds like he was having these crazy, quote unquote, freak off parties where sex trafficking was happening, and if the rumors are true that he has cameras throughout the entirety of his mansion and filming everything that happens there, including some not so great interactions between people of, possible underage status. I mean, it just feels like, Remso, that P. Diddy was leveraging this position, this power to blackmail individuals in Hollywood, powerful individuals, powerful people in music, in pop, in rap. Or I'm just going to toss it out there. Is he maybe a potential controlled asset? I mean, we saw with Jeffrey Epstein, there's a lot of questions still remaining there. Was Jeffrey Epstein working with the CIA? Was he working with Mossad? Or, what's going on here?
So you bring up something interesting, and I'm genuinely curious. With the Jeffrey Epstein situation, there's a lot of there are a lot of people that wonder whether or not he was a controlled asset. With Diddy, though, and there's a reason I want to start with this question. Your gut feeling, do you believe he's an independent actor, or do you think he's a controlled agent?
I think he's a controlled agent, and here's why.
Okay.
You do not all of a sudden, and for folks playing along in the home game who weren't aware, when all of this P. Diddy stuff started to become more of a conversation versus just whispers, a plane from Florida where P. Diddy was, private plane, left completely unmanned. Well, not unmanned. There was one person flying it, but no passengers, to a remote island in the Caribbean. What was on that plane? Right? What was there? And to that, why did the feds not stop it or be there for when it arrived? Right? Or when they went to the P. Diddy's mansion, like, it was after all this. So what was on that plane? Right? And how did somebody in Diddy's circle know to fly this plane potentially with some nefarious things that were on that plane that would incriminate P. Diddy, or incriminate the feds if there was a relationship there? I mean, what would be the first thing you would do, right, Remso? Would be get rid of the evidence. And what better way to do that than to literally send it out of the country, right, into some, Caribbean island? I mean, who have we seen before put things on a Caribbean island that aren't so great, right? And that's kind of where my thought process is.
The Epstein, for us to understand Diddy, we have to understand Epstein. And sadly, I think a lot of things died with Epstein when he allegedly died. That's a big if right there, because I remember them wheeling his body out, and I'm like, you don't leave his face exposed. Like,
gotta make sure it's him, Remso.
You don't do that. Well, I mean, that's a whole other thing. Well, we can get into that, but like, between him and what his girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell, none of her stuff got leaked to the public. The fact that, even Trump, like 6 months ago, was like, I don't know if I'll release it. And then suddenly he's like, sure, I'll release it. It's just one of those situations where it's like, I would agree that something is big and something is so interconnected that it would expose a lot of people. But for us to understand Diddy, we have to understand Epstein. And I don't know if we're ever going to. That's the sad part about it. With Diddy, and this is what surprised me so much about him, was like, I thought that he had mostly fallen into irrelevance, but here's what he did. He continued to throw these parties. He continued to have these people over. He took photos. He did all this stuff. That's a form of power mongering that is not something that is alien to rich people.
Yep.
I go back to history, big like supernatural occult buff and stuff like that. Like, I look at the Hellfire Club, in England and Scotland, and the Hellfire Club was basically a sex club for the influential, the political, and the elite. Benjamin Franklin was part of it because he was a notorious pervert. But I look at the situation.
Sorry, just think of The Office when the Ben Franklin impersonator goes to Pam and goes, "Well, you're saucy." Just imagining Ben Franklin in the late 1700s putting his moves on some French chick overseas. Like,
I have read.
Bonjour. Do you want to see an electrical trick with a light bulb and a kite? Like,
I have read Benjamin Franklin's letters to his son regarding women, and it's that good. It is so inappropriate. Like, it is so, he would be canceled so fast today. So fast. And there are things that, Brian, if I said it right now, don't say it, please, that this whole thing would get pulled. Like, it is funny. It is genuinely like, oh my God, it's funny. But that's a whole other thing. With Diddy, though, I almost feel like, did he get caught or did somebody throw him under the bus? Here's my point. We've been comparing him to Epstein, who's another big Hollywood mogul, big figure, political and entertainment, who got caught, but got caught fast, and immediately everyone came down on him. Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein, who no one thought was somebody you could touch, got thrown under the bus immediately. Epstein, not necessarily. With Diddy, You have people like Cuba Gooding Jr. and others who are saying, yeah, I knew him, but I had nothing to do with any of that stuff. I didn't know about that stuff. I have nothing to do with it. With Weinstein, it was like, yeah, I knew everything about Harvey. With who's I believe I can R. Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
R. Kelly got tossed immediately. And what made me sick in that documentary about R. Kelly are all his friends who were like, oh, yeah, he was disgusting. And I should know. I delivered him the underage girls. It's like you all were a part of it, but you threw him out. What makes Harvey Weinstein somebody who's untouchable that suddenly gets thrown under the bus, but nobody is out to really toss accusations at Diddy? That's why I wonder, if he's controlled, does that mean he's expendable? We're going to assume that Epstein was not expendable. We're going to assume that Weinstein was expendable. I would want to see who starts coming out with accusations, and when all the stuff suddenly comes clear overnight, like a treasure trove of stuff, that will determine whether or not he was an expendable asset or if he was not expendable. If he's an expendable asset, I can believe the controlled operative, the controlled agent theory, that maybe he was collecting stuff on behalf of the government. We know that the government uses powerful people for that. Ronald Reagan was one of the most famous examples of an actor who was paid by the government to find communists. And we know that they do this. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. People can't say that hasn't happened before, but what comes out regarding Diddy and who starts pointing figures will really show that. Is he expendable or is he not?
Let's compare and contrast again. Epstein, Weinstein, and Diddy. One of those names does not sound like the other. But let's start with Epstein, right? If let's go to the controlled assets standpoint versus Diddy. If my theory that I outlined here at the beginning of this segment, Diddy, all of the data, all of the tapes, everything was on that airplane, right? And went to the middle of the ocean. What's the government have to be afraid of if that was everything? And if he was controlled asset, right, you're expendable now. Versus someone like an Epstein, right? Now, let's just say he was a controlled asset, but maybe he wasn't controlled by the U.S. government. Maybe he was controlled by Mossad or someone therein. And they didn't know where the extra tapes were, right? They knew where Epstein Island was, but were all the tapes there, right? And if we can't guarantee that we have everything, right, this guy's dangerous because he might know where everything else is hidden. Maybe he made, backups or what have you. And we can't address this and control the narrative if we let him live. And maybe Weinstein, maybe, again, he's much like a Diddy where all the actors were like, yep. And I say actors, all the political actors and the actors said, yeah, we know he was a terrible human being. And it's like they were just trying to get ahead of all this. So even if things were exposed, it's a matter of, oh, yeah, we knew that. And we were trying to raise attention to it. And thank God he finally got his comeuppance. Me too. Like that became the whole argument versus what's this guy doing? Like, why is it you got to go to Harvey Weinstein or to get a role in Hollywood? Oh, because you got to let him diddle you so you can diddle him. And then you can get a relationship with some high up individual. And also Hillary Clinton's a best friend. What? Right? And then all of a sudden you start asking these questions. They're like, no. This is part of a whole thing. This is the Me Too movement. Don't ask questions. He's a bad dude. We're doing the right thing. We're taking him out. He's no longer part of us. And that's the narrative. That narrative.
Here's the wild thing too. Like, and I know, I believe that Weinstein, I'm going to be very careful with my words here. Weinstein did commit an act of sexual assault. Mm-hmm. I do believe that he attempted to rape people. I do not believe his sentence was congruent with the charges. And I say that, and this is why I put Weinstein in a different category than others. I don't think he was nearly as bad as Epstein, but the thing is that, and this opens up a whole can of worms. If a grown man invites you to his hotel room and he says, listen, you want to be in Barbie? Well, here's what you got to do. And then you do what he says. I'm not calling you a victim. I'm not even saying you had it coming, but what I'm calling you is complicit. And we don't hold adults accountable for things. Biggest example, Gavin Newsom's wife. I have called her on X, Harvey Weinstein's ex-girlfriend. Because even in her own testimony, and even in evidence brought to the court during the Weinstein trial, there was never any evidence of coercion. And she is very explicit. And this is where the whole, they tried to cancel Aziz Ansari about it. Is it rape or was it bad sex?
God, that was an awful story,
That was
by the
an
way.
awful thing. Awful what that woman did to him. Gavin Newsom's wife, Sybil, or whatever her name is, she will talk about how horrible the sex was or the hand job was with Harvey Weinstein. Here's the thing.
The dude looks like an ogre. Like,
okay, but she consented though.
Oh no, 100%. I'm just saying it's going to be a bad handy if he looks like an ogre.
She consented though. And in all the emails, she's talking about how thankful she is for, not group emails, private emails. Harvey, thank you so much for helping Gavin. That was a consensual sexual relationship. With that, it's like I it's not that I don't feel bad. It's that I don't feel a reason to feel bad for a majority of the women who went into the situation that they knew better. And they did that, such as Gavin Newsom's wife, or as I call her, Harvey Weinstein's ex-girlfriend. In the case of Diddy, though, let's name a few of the people that have already been brought in with this. I think R. Kelly's one of them.
Yep.
R. Kelly's one of them. No surprise there. Barack Obama and Cuba Gooding Jr.'s ex. Now, why do I mention Cuba Gooding Jr.? And this also ties back to Patrick Bet-David in May of this year.
When he interviewed him.
Yeah, Cuba Gooding Jr. is one of the few celebrities to come out and talk about it. And he said it was because Diddy hired his wife to basically be like his publicist for a while. Why would you put out, if you're trying to cover fire for somebody, why would you put out a Cuba Gooding Jr.? Why? Because a man went to prison for tax evasion and his reputation, his career has already been dragged through the mud. Doesn't matter whether people believe him or not, but you can say, well, Cuba Gooding Jr. said X. It's like, okay. And like, okay, so you just did this whole thing. You're coming out to say that it's 6 degrees of separation from Diddy. If it's not that bad, why did you come out? Why did you feel the need to talk about that? Well, you had a movie coming out. Well, yeah, like anyone's lining up to see Cuba Gooding Jr. So
I honestly, by the way, I forgot that Cuba Gooding Jr. was Cuba Gooding Jr. until he was on the PBD podcast. So yeah. I actually had forgotten that he was in Snow Dogs, if that makes sense.
Well, I had watched the People versus O.J. Simpson, which is some of the best television I've ever seen. Genuinely.
Really?
Oh, it's great. Watch it on Netflix if you have Netflix.
Yeah,
it's the People versus.
I don't, but I'll.
It is some of the best television I've ever seen. Dead to rights, some of the best. But it's like I want to start seeing the people who get accused by Diddy's people, and I want to see them say, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." My Obama voice. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Let me be clear. I did not have anything to do with Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Sean Combs. That was all Michelle.
I don't know what Diddy did. Okay, that
was all Michael and Michelle.
It's not about who starts distancing themselves immediately, because when you have to start with the Cuba Gooding Juniors, that's not very convincing. What I want to see are the people who get accused. And, that ultimately says more than anything. And it's, I wonder if it ties into the election because of the timing.
100%.
100%. Yeah. Like I genuinely wonder, but like, do you think we care about this story as much as liberals do?
No.
Because it seems like liberals didn't care about Epstein until they brought up the Trump photo.
Yep.
It seems like only until they can
it's
target.
It's a gotcha, dude. It's a gotcha. It's the, your guy's worse than my guy. That's all it is.
Yeah, they actually, Lincoln Project actually had an advertisement here outside of Milwaukee that showed Lincoln a photo of, full of pedophiles, right?
A bunch of kid diddlers.
Yeah. They showed the photo of Epstein and Trump from like 1992, and it said, "Don't vote for Jeffrey Epstein's friend." And it's like, what the hell? Like,
such disingenuous.
Like, that's just there's so much context missing from that. I think that ultimately, and this is one reason I think it's being downplayed more than it is, I have a theory, but I will tell people is that I'm still developing it, which is why I won't say more. I think that P. Diddy and Montel Williams have a connection.
Oh, shit. Now it's getting real.
And why would I say Montel Williams?
Because Montel Williams was Kamala Harris's boy toy back in the 90s.
All I'm going to say.
All right, well, we're painting the picture, and if all this makes you feel doom and gloom, and you're like, you know what, maybe America isn't a great place to go ahead and, I don't know, raise a family, live the rest of my life, and you want to get the heck out of Dodge, well, go ahead, check out this year's Expat Money Summit. Listen to our good friend Mikkel Thorup tell you all the good things you need to hear about why you want to maybe explore life abroad. Let's take a listen.
Hey everyone, Brian Nichols here with an incredible opportunity for you. The Expat Money Summit, which is the world's premier offshore event, is happening online from October 7th to October 11th. So whether you're just starting to explore international options or you're a seasoned expat, this summit has something for you. With over 40 speakers, including Dr. Ron Paul, Doug Casey, and more, you'll gain the knowledge and strategies to navigate the complex world of internationalization with confidence. And it's completely free to attend. Just visit expatmoneysummit.com to reserve your complimentary ticket. Don't miss this chance to learn how to secure your freedom and wealth abroad. One more time, expatmoneysummit.com. And now, back to the show.
All right, Remso. So we're going to get ready to bring this home today. There's a lot we unpacked. We started out, we dug into the Blue Anon, QAnon. We talked about the Teamsters. We talked about P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Sean Combs, and all of his fun inner workings and connections. What was that?
What did he do?
What did he do? And who did he diddle? These are the questions that we are asking here on the Brian Nichols Show, AMP America Week in Review, which we are live, by the way. So thank you to all the folks who've been jumping in and out and watching you guys over on Twitter and over on Facebook. Appreciate the love. And yeah, I know our scheduling is always a little sporadic. Friday or Saturdays, we're going live. Just depends on travel. It's been a crazy past few weeks here. It's going to be even crazier the next few weeks. So just pay attention there, folks, and just keep the little subscribe button for whenever we go live. But Remso, let's just kind of bring this home. What would you say is like the main takeaway here this week when we're talking about everything across the board from Blue Anon to P. Diddy, Teamsters, in between?
There's it's called the political horse race for a reason, because you never know who wins until you see who wins. I went ahead and I actually started looking a lot more into a lot of the polling information recently. And, depending on the pollster, depending on the site, you're going to get exactly what you want. And I forget who said it. It was like, facts are damn things because they could prove whatever you want. Depending on the site I go to, depending on the poll, depending on the day of the week, 100% Trump certainty, 100% Kamala certainty. Let's just look at the last 5 months. RFK Jr. drops out of the race, endorses Trump.
Well, that's because he was too busy with Olivia Newsy, but that's a different conversation.
That's a whole other thing, yeah. Trump gets shot, and attendees at his rally get shot. Somebody tries to shoot Trump again. The sitting president of the United States, who is running for re-election, drops out 4 months before the election, after already for a year having essentially a de facto cheated primary. It wasn't even 2016 levels of cheat. In 2016, they had a primary. This year, they kept out Dean Phillips. They kept out RFK. They kept out Marianne Williamson. It was a North Korean style primary. And then as soon as they expose that the sitting president is unwell after spending years of propping him up to be the example of a fit president,
unwell. His brain was mashed potatoes, but yes.
They replace him with the most unpopular VP of our lifetime in a coronation. And after all of this cheating and rigging and a de facto coup before our eyes, we're told that the Republican nominee, who has been a political target, who has been, they've tried to destroy his life over the last 4 years, is a threat to democracy, as he's bringing together the broadest coalitions of Republicans of Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Libertarians since Reagan 1980.
Yep.
Yet he's a threat to democracy. The point is, I go back to this woman I saw screeching and talking about all her blue Anon bullshit. I don't know how this election is going to go. I can tell you what I feel in my gut. My gut is that the last 4 years, as I dealt with the aftermath of Parler, with the aftermath of, dealing with all this shit from being associated with, high profile Republicans and stuff in 2020 through 2021 of trying to get my life back, of staying out of politics, to 3 years really after feeling like I escaped all that, to now being a regular on your show and, managing Amp America and doing all this other shit. My gut tells me that things don't happen for a reason. And I always said for years, I feel like I'm a jinxed vote because I've never voted for anybody that's won. I didn't vote for Trump in 2016. Trump won. I voted for Trump in 2020. He lost. After all of this, to bring me full circle back here, I am in a battleground state. And for people that have been watching, it's like I'm a very big supporter of the PA chase because everything rides on Pennsylvania. But the other day, because I'm going to have to be traveling for work in November, I registered to vote absentee. Maybe this is just me. Maybe I'm getting sentimental. Maybe I'm thinking too much into it. But I think I was brought here for a very specific reason. I think I am here for a very specific reason. I think I'm one of the many people who have been very objective about how I feel about Trump. And it's very public and on the record of how I've been. I think he wins. I think he wins, and a lot of this nightmare ends. I'm also a realist because I was prepared for a Trump victory in 2020 and we got Biden. And ultimately, my thing is like never rely on a single political figure to save you, protect yourself. But I'm telling you, down to my bones, I think he wins. And I think it was last week I told you about my father who never pays attention to things. My dad is like, he can see into the future when it comes to this stuff. And I asked him, I'm like, what do you think? And he's like, this is different. Something is happening. People are, either one way or another on this. You can't change their minds. But a lot of people who just wanted to stay out of it are paying attention now. And then they're like, shit, I can't not pay attention anymore. And Trump is the only one I feel that can actually put some of this back on track. So I think we're going to have a hectic 45 days, if that's the number. Roughly 40 days. I think a lot can change. But I think ultimately people have seen the bullshit. We see it with the Teamsters. Have the 15 independent councils endorse. 60% of the Teamster vote is going to Trump, though.
Yep.
So take that for what you will. But I think he comes back. I think we have 4 years of a hectic government. I don't think it's going to be smooth. I think we're going to see obstruction and craziness beyond all measures. But I think ultimately he does the things to radically reform this country. And I think it's going to happen. And eventually we'll find out whether Epstein had more stuff we need to uncover, what Diddy did. I think I think America's about to be rocked.
So my final thoughts, Remso, I'm going to take what you outlined and I'm going to layer in a little bit of what we talked about today. So Blue Anon, conspiracy theories, Diddy having all this nonsense happen, the Teamsters just completely changing direction and going towards Trump, right? You're right. And your dad's right. Something's happening behind the scenes. And I think that something happening right now is what's actually leading to a lot of these, wild conspiracy theories, specifically on the left. I think it's what's leading to the Teamsters now just completely changing direction towards Trump. Why we see folks like Diddy starting to meet the actual consequences of their actions or the conspiracy therein, right? All of this is leading to, I think, one underlying reality, and that is, to your point, Trump's winning. Even though the polls say otherwise, and not all the polls, right? To your point, one can say he's going to win 100%. The other says there's no chance in hell he's going to win. But those sentiments, right, of fear, they are underlying, I believe, the traditional Democratic establishment and the deep state establishment, which goes to my point for today as we wrap things up. I've been hearing this a lot, and and this is in a lot of our circle of friends too, Remso, and I see this. There's this concern. I don't believe it's genuine, but there's a concern that's promoted of, well, he's a dictator in waiting, right? He is this one guy. He's going to take control of power. He's going to cause all this mayhem and destruction. I don't trust him. I don't trust the America. Time out, please. Right. I'm going to throw a flag because we have a deep state right now that's controlling things. And you're all pretending it doesn't exist when not only do we know it exists, they admit they exist. Back in the 2020 election, I think it was Newsweek or Time, I forget which news entity it was, they published a whole article about how these deep state, both in government but also in the private sector, work together to try and stop a Trump presidency. Stop saying it doesn't exist. It exists, and it's happening right now with the people that you're tacitly trying to embrace as an alternative to Trump. Why? Because Trump is the bull in the china shop? Because Trump's the one acknowledging that there are things that are happening right now that are inherently undemocratic, despite the people who are in charge of these institutions planting their flag of democracy, saying, democracy dies in darkness. No, democracy dies with you. And that's where we have to start paying attention, is that the boogeyman that has been the caricature of Trump, stop it. He's not in office. He's not a sitting president. He didn't destroy America. As a matter of fact, that was the best foreign policy we've had in a 4-year stretch in decades.
He won his primary.
He did win his primary. He actually got some votes. But that right there, Remso, that is where I get so frustrated. And I've argued this before. Stop being the useful idiots, right? Like, just, we get it. You're a libertarian. Understood. Me too. I'm not going to be autistic about it, right? Like, let's actually address the real world for the real world that it is, in the real world context, in the real world situations, not these just make-believe scenarios that you've contrived in your little group chats or your Facebook groups of, well, this is why Trump's the worst thing in the world. He's going to destroy America. Okay, great. You keep arguing that while America is being destroyed, and it's been destroyed from the inside out. And by the way, in your autistic approach to screaming and pointing at Trump because orange man bad, orange man scary, you have encouraged and allowed the Democratic establishment, the deep state establishment, but I repeat myself, work together hand in hand to change the America you and I grew up in, Remso, back a short 30 years ago. Change the America our parents grew up in a short 50, 60 years ago. Change the America their parents grew up in a short 80, 90 years ago to, if you were to go and talk to your great-great-grandfather or your great-great-grandmother, would they recognize this country as what it is today from what they grew up in? Absolutely not. But Brian, like Kamala Harris said, we're going forward. We're turning the page. We're not going back. Okay, time out. Again, you keep saying going forward. Going forward where? Off a cliff? No, thank you. That's my final thoughts for today, Remso. Where can folks go ahead, find you, support all the great work you're doing beyond Go Remso, which is over on Instagram?
Hey, Remso, HEYRAMSO, over on X.
Easy enough. All right. ampamerica.com is where you can go ahead and find all of the amazing articles being written by our phenomenal team. In today's article, we had sharing about the Blue Anon, QAnon. That was by Tim Sharp. So thank you, Tim, for going ahead and writing that banger of an article. Tim, who else? We got Austin, yours truly, you, Jamie. There's a lot of other folks over there at Amp America writing some bangers of articles. So go ahead, give them some love. And when you do, tell them that you heard their article or you heard their names dropped here on the Brian Nichols Show. I know that they will appreciate that. I appreciate it as well. Find yours truly at B Nichols Liberty. And yes, today's episode for our week in review with Amp America was live. So if you joined us on Twitter or on Facebook, thank you for stopping in. We do this every single week unless we don't. So just go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit that little notification bell so you don't miss a single time we do, in fact, go live for our Amp America week in review. Remso, any final words for the audience as you wrap things up today?
Let's find out what Diddy did.
Let's find out. Go enjoy your super juiced up McDonald's, Cosmic McDonald's. Love you, buddy. Good to talk to you. With that being said, Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show, Amp America week in review for Remso Martinez. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.